Hi there, this little video is to give some suggestions for how to evaluate bows. I'm a third year, fourth year cellist, and I have been using a carbon fiber bow. Actually not terrible. This is a K Wilhelm fiber bow, but I started to realize that I wanted more tone color. I wanted more flexibility. I wanted a bow that's a little bit more challenging in some ways. This was a very good starter bow, cost about I think it was about $150 to $190. Served me well for several years. But that said, I just didn't find the tone color particularly interesting, particularly as I started moving into the higher notes. And so I was really interested in seeing what bows could do for me. Let me start, before I get going here, let me just describe what I have here. So I have I have the bows laid out. I have a little matrix pickup on my bridge, which and this is tied to my cork tuner just to make sure that I'm in tune. Obviously that's important, and also to be able to identify any problem areas. I want to be able to make notes and so forth. So I think it's pretty essential to have one of these things, and I put the tuner on the actual bridge so that I can get a really nice clear signal directly through the bridge. Not absolutely essential, but I think it's pretty useful. This is not my cello. This is a loaner cello. Mine is in the shop getting some repairs. But of course, it's extremely important to test the bows on your cello. And I did that already. Just for the purposes of this video, I'm using a different cello. Actually, I find it pretty useful to use a different cello as well, because different cellos have different issues, wolf tones, whatever, and that kind of gives you a little bit of a sense of the capabilities of the bow, separately from the cello. And I also have a little microphone directed at my F-holes here that maybe improve the sound a little bit. Okay, so how do you go about evaluating a bow? First of all, let's begin with the carbon fiber bow that I've been using. The construction of this thing is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's very robust. You could probably sit on it. It's fine. The stick is relatively stiff, quite stiff. Maybe that's one of the issues to think about, is how stiff is the stick. In terms of handling, I got no issues with it. It's got pretty good balance. I did find my hand kind of tending to creep up this way a little bit, especially when playing certain kind of passages, faster passages, and so that's something to just kind of keep in mind. But all in all, I think this was a very good starter bow, probably better than most people's starter bows. But, you know, I started to get more interested in other kinds of tone color. So what are the things that I would do, that I would recommend to do to evaluate a bow? First of all, everything that I say here, you know, obviously you can supplement with your own experimentation and so forth, and you should definitely ask others to evaluate the bows as well along with you. If you're at my, say, third or fourth year level, it's a great idea to get somebody who's played 10 years or 15 years or whatever to just go through the bows really quickly and just give a quick impression, you know, and you could do a double blind test where they don't know the prices and all that kind of stuff. The reason is that people with more advanced technique will probably be a little bit more sensitive to some of the things that people like me still need to learn. But that said, there's a couple of basic things to do. And I think it's important when evaluating a bow not to launch into some difficult piece where technical ability, proficiency could be the issue and not the bow. In other words, I think it's really, really simple to just develop a couple of very simple standard tests that you can do and that allow you to evaluate one bow versus another. And then if you really want to see how a bow performs in fantastic passage work and whatever, great, but you know, that's kind of gravy. All right, so what are the most basic things to look for? Obviously, the most basic things to look for, first of all, are mechanical. Does the bow, if you release tension on the hairs, and as you tighten on the hairs, have a look down like this and make sure that the thing doesn't curve one way or the other. And I would go ahead and take it up to full tension. It's actually kind of a problem with this fiber bow, is I can only get about that much separation, and so that's an issue. And I usually play with it a good bit softer than that. Make sure that the screw mechanism works well. Inspect the bow and make sure that all these little doodads, extraneous doodads like the pearls and all this other kind of stuff, actually that nothing slips, that nothing rattles. That's a big problem, and I'll show you with one of the bows that I looked at in a second. Had a weird rattle, and I couldn't figure out what it was, and it turned out to be this inlay right here. These are things that can be fixed, but you don't necessarily want to fix something right off the bat. The bow spreaders, so here and here, it's really important to make sure that they are well made and properly positioned and so forth. And then, of course, make sure there's plenty of hair. The bow may or may not come rosined if you're going to evaluate bows. That's something to bear in mind, because you want to rosin consistently, and there are different kinds of rosins. So depending on the seasons and so forth, you really want to make sure that you do a good job with that. All right, well, let's just get started on, other than that, then what do you actually do with it on the cello? So what I like to do, first of all, is just play open strings and just get a feel for it. In this particular bow, what I think is a good idea for me, what I was looking for that I wasn't getting from this bow, is a light wispy sound. I can get a little bit of that nice sound from when I work very, very near the fingerboard on the bass notes, but I wasn't able to get it quite as much to my satisfaction on the higher notes, and so that's what we'll kind of talk about. So there's a couple of extremes to visit. One is very light fingerboard kind of work, faster fingerboard kind of work, where you're looking for whether the bow is kind of oscillating, if there's anything strange happening there. And in order to really probe that limit, what I do is I actually release quite a lot of tension on the bow hair, so that when I place it with just very light pressure, that the hairs actually spread out as I rock the bow back, as we normally do. That most of the bow hair is contact, and you can get a really nice tone out of it. No fingering here, just try to get a good sense of it, and then go for the gold towards the bridge. You really want to add tension on the hairs, which is a problem with this bow. Is I've lost the ability to bring a lot of tension on the bow hair. See, how does it sound if you sit right on the bridge? How easy is it to set up that really nice vibration that you want to be able to see the big amplitude vibration? And also do a couple of things like that just to kind of get a feeling. So I do that on all the strings. So this one has a really nice G string, sounds really particularly good with this bow, etc. So working all the way from the fingerboard all the way down to the bridge. Makes sense. The other thing to do, of course, really important, is a way to check out the balance of the bow and how it feels in your hand and so forth, and how it sort of comports with your technique, is to do a couple of string crossing things like this. And so maybe somewhere in the middle between the bridge and the fingerboard, nothing super fancy, just to try to get a feeling for what's going on. And then try, of course, the tonal limits, whatever you feel comfortable playing. Now, what I was going for, there's a Chopin piece where this became really, really, really important, is to be able to get a couple of kind of really wispy, light upper notes. And so that was actually a pretty big motivator, what got me going on this odyssey to check out a whole bunch of different bows. So that's important. And then they're also, play your favorite piece and just see what. So I had a little bit of had some issue with that tonality, and that's what got me going on my bow checkups. Okay, so let me set aside the carbon fiber bow. Let me go through a couple of other bows. So after carbon fiber, there are some other bows that are interesting. This one is interesting. It's a hybrid. It's got carbon fiber on the inside, and then it's got some kind of pernambuco laminate on the outside. And I know what you're thinking. How is this even possible? It's like a pencil or something. I don't know. It's weird. How do they make it? But actually quite nice. It's got some really nice tonality. I was worried about getting some kind of dueling properties from the pernambuco and from the carbon fiber, but actually the bow works together very well. Well made. Unfortunately, this one doesn't have a label. I wish I could tell you what it is, but there are a whole bunch of these on the market now. Very nice looking, very nice feeling in the hand, and it has a quality that I really like, kind of a wispy light tone, and also the ability to get pretty much as growly and bassy as you like. This particular bow goes for about $295. This one does have, as I was saying at the beginning, it's the importance of checking the structural things. This one does have some, this piece right here is a little bit loose. And so I was playing for a while before I realized that that little slight rattle was actually coming from there. But this bow is very, very nice. I would say it's definitely a step up from the basic carbon fiber bow, and not that much more expensive. So $295 is not cheap, but it's what I was really going for with this exercise of checking out different bows is a light and wispy sound around, say, the E and up. So this has some of that. It definitely has some of the quality that I was looking for. Certainly does a lot better than the carbon fiber bow. And feels it feels more agile in the hand. One thing, I don't mean to slam all carbon fiber bows, but one thing about the carbon fiber bows that's great about them is they're super consistent across the entire spectrum, and so they're really good for starters. But eventually you actually maybe want to have different tone color at different ends of the spectrum, so you just have to play around. So let me set this one aside. Let's see, I've also got, what have I got here? This is an unnamed bow as well that came from a luthier. This one's about $400 and it's pernambuco, and this one's from Brazil. Thicker stick, quite nice and stiff, which the stiffness is important, especially if you want to try to get that kind of stuff. Quite a nice bow. $400, feels really, really good. Really no complaints about this bow at all. I think it's probably going to make a really nice second, actually. I'll show you the one that I picked for the first. Let's see what else we got here. This is hard to read this. Can barely read it. Marco Raposo. Okay. Sorry about that. Can hardly see this with my light in here. This one's 80.5 grams. Definitely pay attention to the weight. Usually if you're testing a bunch of bows out, they'll have the weight here so that you can kind of test it out and see how it feels with your hand. This bow feels really good in my hands. I think the added weight somehow gives me some extra confidence or something, but this is in the 300-ish kind of range. The fittings are very well made, really a lot of fun to play, and this one seems to have just a little bit of extra hair. I like that extra width, actually. I don't know why some cello bows seem to have not enough hair width back here, and that's really a function of how well the spreader is installed and how well it was haired and so forth. And I think that if you're trying to set up a nice growl in the bass, and you really, really need that, you should try playing with a bass bow sometimes. It's really a lot of fun. Let's look forward a little bit. Some other bows. This one is a Klaus Becker, 80 gram. Also a very nice bow. Let me go ahead and tighten it up a little bit. Nothing wrong with this one. Again, a rather thick stick. Maybe not quite as stiff as I might. Well, it feels pretty good. This one. Probably one of the easiest to get the nice big bass sounds. Kind of hard to get the sounds that I wanted on the treble side. Actually really hard to get those sounds. Yeah, let off pressure here and try a couple things. I'm getting kind of a more of a horn-like sound than I was hoping for. It might be totally fine. The technique might just have to adjust to the bow or something like that, but this one wasn't one of my favorites all around, but all in all a very good bow. This is a curiosity. This one is quite light. It's 79 grams, and it's stamped W. Seifert. Has a nice grippy rubber piece here. Is curiously thin, which is kind of odd if you come from a thicker stick, but a very nice bow. It's kind of buttery. It's kind of got that wispiness that I like, as well as the grippiness in the bass. Let's see if we can get some more pressure here. Probably not the most convincing bass sound on this one, but of course that could also be a function of rosining and all that kind of good stuff. So definitely a very interesting bow, also in the 300-ish kind of range, by W. Seifert. Very nice bow. And then here's the pièce de résistance. So this is the bow that I actually picked on my cello, and I also like on this cello. This is a Guy Laurent 3-star Pernambuco bow, 80.5 grams. This is the bow to which I compare all the other ones now, because this one, pretty much as soon as I picked it up and other more experienced players picked it up, they immediately said, oh, well, this is nice. Very forgiving. It's a very nice, formidable, grippy feeling in the bass. And also, if you let off a little bit of hair pressure or attention there a little bit, it's got a little bit of a nice wispy, sort of slightly sandy kind of sound. All in all, a very, very nice bow. Unfortunately, this one is running about $700, so it might be a bit much for late beginner or early intermediate, but on the other hand, I think this is a great bow to compare the others to, at least. Certainly a great bow, and I've known a couple of far more experienced cellists to play very well with it, so that's something to definitely consider. 4 of these bows came from Char Music. They sent them out to me for about $25, which is great. Includes a return expense, and then I decided to get this bow, so I'm keeping it. The other ones are going back, but they have a number of bows, and you can have a look there and see. There are plenty of other places that can send out some bows for evaluation. By all means, get. It's painful and it takes a long time, but get a lot of bows, and at least different kinds, and try them out for a week or two, and that'll really help you make your decision. All right, I hope it's helpful. Good luck finding your next bow.